I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. Today's webinar has been produced by the ARBV and is aimed at candidates preparing for the Architectural Practice Examination, the APE. ARBV was established under the Architects Act 1991 and is a Victorian statutory authority. The ARBV has a number of powers and duties as set out in the Architects Act 1991. This includes to regulate the professional conduct of architects, which we do by investigating matters about architects, whether in response to a complaint or based on other information or a proactive activities such as an audit. Action taken can be enforcement action against an architect for professional conduct or an individual for prohibited conduct, which may include referring the architect's tribunal or prosecution. Accrediting architectural programs of study, which can be completed to meet the qualification requirements for registration, and of course the registration of architects and approved companies and partnerships, which is the focus of today's presentation. The focus of this presentation will be the Architectural Practice Examination, the APE. The presentation will provide background on pre-registration requirements, alternative pathways to registration, and the registration process. The presentation will not cover other pathways to registration and the requirements for registration as an architect in Victoria. For more information on this, please visit our website. The presentation will outline the 3 parts of the APE examination process, APE Part 1, 2, and 3. The aim of this presentation is that candidates have a clear understanding of the documentation required to be submitted for each part of the APE and the APE process. If after watching this presentation you still have questions, please direct them to the ARBV email provided on the last slide. There are 3 main pathways to registration. APE is the most common pathway to registration and the pathway that you would all take to registration in Australia. We will cover the APE in more detail in later slides. The second pathway is the EPA, which is a competency-based assessment that involves the submitting of a portfolio and an assessment conducted with the registered architects examiners. This is conducted by the AACA on behalf of the ARBV. This is for both overseas qualified or locally experienced practitioners who have not registered in Australia previously. The final pathway is MR. This allows equivalent registration in other states or territories from where you were originally registered. This project generally covers most professions and allows freedom of movement. New Zealand is included in these arrangements. There are unique circumstances that could apply to you. However, given your attendance here today, APE is the most likely pathway for you. The APE is administered by the AACA on behalf of the ARBV and other states and territories' architect registration boards. The APE is conducted in 3 parts. Part 1, Logbook and Statement of Practical Experience. Part 2, National Examination Paper. And Part 3, Examination by Interview. We will go over these parts in more detail in the next few slides. Once you've completed all 3 parts of the APE successfully, you will be ready to apply for registration. We have frequently asked questions and other information on our website. Likewise, the AACA have resources available. The AACA have also created a procedure guide for candidates. We encourage everyone to read this prior to starting the APE. One thing to note is that there will be changes to the APE in 2023 and 2024. These changes will impact the logbook and statement of practical experience. So ensure you are looking at the most recent documents on the AACA website prior to applying for the APE, particularly in the next 2 years. The APE is a national examination and the dates are decided between the architecture boards and the AACA. We update the dates annually on our website and the dates are generally the same across all states and territories. The NEP Part 2 is held nationally on the same day. The dates are provided publicly towards the end of each year, so it is important that you check our website for the APE dates. It is important to note that the APE will contact you as you progress through parts 1, 2, and 3. We will contact you through the process to let you know what to do, or if we require any additional information from you. It is also important to note that the dates provided for the part 3, the examination by interview, are a guide, as the interview days are not scheduled until we receive the results for part 2. If you have any commitments and you have submitted the APE for the APE session, you will need to ensure you have availability during that time, as we are unable to accommodate requests. The part 1 of the APE is the logbook and statement of practical experience. As you can see on the slides, there are certain documents that must be submitted for part 1. APE candidate summary sheet, AACA logbook, statement of practical experience, statutory declaration, list of architects you have worked with, list of projects you have worked on, and a copy of your architectural qualifications. You need to make sure all of these documents are submitted at the time of applying, as you may be found ineligible if the documents are not included. The Part 1 process is used to determine eligibility to proceed through to Part 2 of the APE. You must ensure you have the appropriate documents and the appropriate experience, and that the documents are set out as required in the procedure guideline for candidates. The ARBV do seek further information to verify the information you have provided, and you are required to complete the statutory declaration to confirm that everything you submitted in Part 1 is true and correct. It is an offence to provide false information to the ARBV, and this could impact your application for registration. The APE candidate summary sheet outlines your personal information, academic qualifications, and a summary of your logged experience. It is important to ensure you provide your legal name for this document, as that this will be checked against your driver's license or passport. This name will be recorded on the register. The date of course completion is as stated on your academics transcript. When completing the logged hours, only include a summary of the hours included in your logbook, and only tick yes to the overseas experience if you have logged overseas experience in your logbook. For example, if you've worked from before graduating as a student but only logged hours post-graduation, do not record any pre-graduation practical experience. With the logbook, you are required to log 3,300 hours across the performance criteria from the National Standards of Competency relevant to the APE. You can read about the specific competencies on our website or the AACA website. You should start familiarising yourself with these competencies if you have not already, as these are relevant throughout the APE process. The logbook covers 8 broad categories of competency, covering design, project briefing, through to project delivery. Your logbook must include a minimum of 2 years practical experience, which has been gained within the previous 10 years. The 2 years practical experience can include no more than 12 months pre-graduation experience and no less than 12 months post-graduation experience, which commences from the date listed on your academic transcript. If you intend to include overseas experience in your logbook, you cannot include more than 12 months overseas experience, and you must also have at least 12 months logged experience in Australia. The 12 months referred to in the requirements for the APE logbook does not refer to calendar months, but are considered to be equivalent to 1,650 hours. Logged experience may be all at executive level or a composite of executive, participant, or observer level. Executive, principal decision maker on a project or project component. Participant, team member or cooperative working under the instructional supervision of a responsible person. Observer, careful observation of procedures and practices carried out by others. Experience logged as a composite of executive, participant and observer level must include at least 40 hours of architectural experience in each of the 15 prescribed performance criteria, at least 40 hours of architectural experience at the executive level in each of at least 5 of the 15 prescribed performance criteria, a maximum of 160 hours of observer level experience in total across performance criteria 1.2, 7.1, 8.8, 8.4, and 8.5. Experience gained when working independently or as an employee of a non-architectural firm must be gained at the executive level. Work experienced overseas can only be logged at observer or participant level if the supervising architect is registered in Australia. If not working under the supervision of an architect registered in Australia, work experience must be logged at executive level. Experience over 10 years old cannot be included in the logbook, but can be included in your summary CV as part of your statement of experience. Before submitting your logbook, it is recommended that you check your logbook for consistency across all documents. Ensure project names are consistent between your logbook sheets, project list, and statement of experience. Check the hours logged match across your logbook competency summary and the project list. Check the typography of your logbook against what you have provided in your statement of practical experience. Confirm your supervising architect details on the logbook are consistent with your list of architects and double check the registration number with the ARBV. Present the statement in a sequence. Indicate your role and level of responsibility. Complete project details and typography consistent with the logbook log sheets. Emphasise the work of 2 years immediately preceding the APE application. Present the statement in chronological order of experience. Your name should appear on the header and every page of the statement. Include the name and registration number of the supervising architect on each page for the experience in an architecture or firm. Cross-reference the performance criteria. Identify the level of experience across each project. Include the registration status of the supervising architect is correct. Ensure the title architect is used correctly across the statement of experience and CV. Provide sufficient evidence to support your claimed experience in the logbook. Do not include project photographs. The statutory declaration attests to the accuracy of the Part 1 documents you have submitted. Use the APE statutory declaration available on the ARBV website. Ensure the statutory declaration has been appropriately signed and witnessed by a person authorised to witness the statutory declaration. Do not attach the statutory declaration to the other Part 1 documents. Submit it as a separate document. The list of supervising architects contains details of architects who have supervised you on projects included in your logbook and statement of experience. Names of supervising architects should be in their full registered name. If you were supervised by a Victorian registered architect, registration numbers are available on the ARBV Register of Architects. If you were supervised by an architect registered interstate, obtain their registration number from the relevant board for inclusion in your Part 1 documents. The project list is a full list of projects included in your logbook. Ensure the project names on the list are consistent with the names used in your logbook and statement of experience. Ensure the total hours of each project are consistent with your logbook sheet entries. Ensure the total project hours is consistent with your logbook competency summary sheet. You must provide proof of architectural qualification in support of your APE application. If you have completed an eligible qualification, provide a copy of your academic transcript. If you completed the Overseas Qualification Assessment, OQA, also provide a copy of the outcome letter issued by the AACA. If you completed the National Program Assessment, NPRA, also provide a copy of the outcome letter issued by the AACA. Part 2 of the APE is the National Exam paper. This part of the APE is held at the same time nationally, and you must successfully complete Part 2 in order to proceed to Part 3 of the APE. This exam is 90 minutes. It contains 9 scenarios, each with 5 multiple choice questions. The scenarios used in the exam are based on the National Standards of Competency for Architects and are used to assess a candidate's knowledge and application of the performance criteria within the Standards of Competency. There are sample scenarios on the AACA website to give you a better understanding of the structure of the type of questions asked. It will also assist in your preparation for the MPE. Candidates who have a disability or other health-related needs which might require adjustments to enable them to sit the national examination paper can apply for reasonable adjustments. Applications for reasonable adjustments must be submitted with some more supporting documentation to the nep@aaca.org.au on or before the closing date for submission of APE Part 1. The last part of the APE is Part 3, the examination by interview. The logbook and statement of practical experience from Part 1, as well as your results from Part 2, are used to help direct the assessment. It is important to note that we are not testing what you do know. The questions you get may be about a gap in your knowledge or experience. You can also be presented with hypothetical situations, and this is all to test candidates' knowledge and experience to ensure they are at an appropriate level to work as an architect in Australia. It is also important to understand that completion for the APE and Part 3 do not mean you are registered, and the APE is a pre-registration requirement. You will still need to apply for registration. You should also note that the profile you use to complete the APE is then used to apply for registration. This keeps all your records together. These are the APE and registration fees as they currently stand. Registration fees are based on fee units that are provided by the Architects Regulations. Fee units generally increase each financial year as set by the Department of Treasury and Finance. The APE fees are set by the AACA, and the ARBV ensures the fees are kept updated and on our website. The Architects Board are generally consulted about any changes to the fees, but the AACA can change the fees as they see fit, and they are an independent organisation. As we have noted, the APE is a pre-registration requirement. Successfully completing the APE enables you to apply for registration. We encourage all successful candidates to apply for registration once they receive confirmation of their success in Part 3. If anything in this presentation is unclear or you have any follow-up questions, please contact the ARBV via email as shown on the screen, registrar@arbv.vic.gov.au.